Have you ever driven down a dark, empty street and felt that strange chill on the back of your neck? That uneasy silence where every sound feels louder than it should? I know the feeling, and trust me, it's unforgettable. Tonight, we're stepping onto some of the UK's most haunted streets, where countless people have claimed to see figures that vanish, hear whispers in the night, and feel eyes watching from the shadows. These aren't just old ghost tales, they're true stories that will make you think twice before traveling these roads alone. 1 A75 Kinmount Straight, Scotland. I will never forget the night I drove along the A75, often called Scotland's most haunted road. It was late, past midnight, and the road stretched ahead of me like a ribbon of silence. I had been warned by locals that strange things often happened there, but I laughed it off. I don't laugh about it anymore. As I turned onto the Kinmount Straight, the headlights of my car cut through the fog. At first, everything seemed normal. The road was quiet, empty, and almost too still. Then, out of nowhere, I saw what looked like a man standing in the middle of the road. He had ragged clothes, his face pale, and for a moment I thought he was hurt. My heart raced as I slammed the brakes. The tires screeched, but there was nothing. No man. Just empty tarmac shining under my headlights. I tried to calm myself, telling myself it was the mist, or my tired eyes. But only a few minutes later, something even stranger happened. A large, dark figure, like a huge dog or wolf, darted across the road. I felt the thud as if my car had struck it. My stomach dropped. I stopped the car immediately, jumped out, and looked around with shaking hands. The road was completely clear. No animal, no sound, not even a paw print. The air felt heavier now, like it was pressing down on me. My hands were cold on the steering wheel when I got back in the car. I remember whispering, "Just keep driving, don't stop." But then, the worst part came. In the rearview mirror, I caught sight of something sitting in the back seat. For only a second, just one terrible second, I saw the outline of a woman, her face gray, her eyes empty. I spun around, and of course, the seat was empty. By the time I reached the end of the Kinmount Straight, I was drenched in sweat. My chest felt tight, and every part of me wanted to turn the car around, but I didn't dare. When I finally pulled into the lights of a small village, I sat in the car for a long time, shaking and trying to convince myself it wasn't real. But it was real. Too real. That road holds something dark, something that doesn't want to be forgotten. And every time I think about it, I can still feel those empty eyes staring at me through the mirror. 2 Bluebell Hill, Kent. I had heard the stories about Bluebell Hill for years. People in Kent always talk about the ghostly hitchhiker who appears late at night, a young bride who died in a car accident back in the 1960s. I never believed any of it, until the night I had to drive that road alone. It was raining lightly, and the wipers were sliding back and forth in a steady rhythm. The road curved sharply, the headlights reflecting off the wet tarmac. That's when I saw her. A woman, standing at the side of the road, holding out her hand like she needed help. She wore a pale dress that clung to her in the rain, and for a moment, my heart sank. It looked like she had just been in trouble. I pulled over, rolled the window down a little, and asked if she needed a ride. She didn't say a word, just nodded slowly. Her face was pale, almost too pale, and her eyes looked empty, but I convinced myself she was in shock. She opened the back door and slid in. I remember the chill that filled the car the moment she sat down. My breath misted inside, even though the heater was on. I started driving again, glancing into the rearview mirror every few seconds. She sat so still, her hands folded in her lap, her head bowed slightly. I tried to speak to her, asked where she wanted to go, but she never answered. My chest felt tighter with every mile. And then, it happened. I looked into the mirror again, and she was gone. Just gone. The seat was empty. The door hadn't opened, I hadn't heard anything, she had simply vanished. I slammed on the brakes, my heart racing so fast I thought I'd pass out. I jumped out of the car, my shoes slipping on the wet road as I searched the darkness. Nothing. The road was empty, silent, except for the rain tapping on the roof of the car. I stood there for a long time, shaking, trying to convince myself I hadn't lost my mind. But I know what I saw. I picked her up. I heard the door shut. I felt the weight in the back seat. Now, whenever I pass Bluebell Hill, I grip the wheel tighter. I avoid driving there at night if I can. Because once you see her, once you feel that cold silence filling your car, you'll understand. She's still out there, waiting for another driver to stop. 3 Stocksbridge Bypass, Sheffield. The night I drove the Stocksbridge Bypass is burned into my memory like a scar. Locals had warned me, it's not just another road, it's a place where reality twists. I laughed it off at first, but I wasn't laughing when I found myself alone on that stretch just after midnight. The road felt wrong the moment I entered. The headlights seemed swallowed by the darkness, and the silence outside was heavy, like the world was holding its breath. I turned the radio on, but the signal cracked with static. Then, out of nowhere, I saw them. 2 children, standing by the barrier on the side of the road. They looked out of place, dressed in old-fashioned clothes, their faces pale and blank. My stomach dropped. Children don't stand out there at midnight. I slowed down, worried they might be lost, but as I blinked, they were gone. Just gone. The space where they had stood was empty. I gripped the wheel tighter, trying to steady my breathing. My mind kept telling me I was imagining things, but my gut knew better. A few minutes later, I felt it, the presence in the car. It was subtle at first, like someone was watching me from the passenger seat. The hairs on my arms rose. I turned my head quickly. No one was there. Then the whispers started. Soft, broken whispers, like children laughing far away. The sound echoed inside the car, bouncing from one ear to the other. My heart thudded so hard I thought it would burst. I shouted into the dark, "Who's there?" but the laughter only grew sharper, then cut off completely, leaving me in silence again. I pushed my foot harder on the accelerator, desperate to reach the end of the bypass. That's when I saw her. A woman, dressed in gray, standing right in the middle of the road. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. I slammed the brakes, the tires screeching across the asphalt, but before the car stopped, she vanished into the night air. When I finally pulled over under a streetlight, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely keep hold of the wheel. My throat was dry, my chest tight. I remember whispering to myself, never again. I'll never drive this road at night again. Even now, years later, I can still see those children, still hear that faint laughter in the back of my head. The Stocksbridge Bypass isn't just haunted, it's cursed. And I will never set foot on it again. 4. Platt Lane, Manchester. It was a cold evening when I found myself walking down Platt Lane in Manchester. I had finished work late and decided to take the quieter route home. The street was dimly lit, the lamps giving off a weak orange glow that barely touched the pavement. The air felt heavy, as if the night itself was pressing down on me. I had heard whispers about Platt Lane before, that a woman had been murdered there years ago, and some said her spirit still lingered. I didn't pay much attention at the time. But the silence of the street, broken only by the sound of my footsteps, made those stories creep back into my mind. Halfway down the lane, I felt it. That prickling on the back of my neck, the sense that someone was behind me. I stopped and turned quickly, but there was no one. Just the long, empty stretch of road. I forced a laugh, telling myself I was being foolish, and kept walking. Then I heard it. Soft footsteps, matching my own, just a few paces behind me. I froze. My chest tightened as I slowly turned again. The lane was empty. My heart hammered in my ears, and I whispered under my breath, "You're imagining things. Keep going." But as I walked on, the footsteps returned. This time quicker, closer. I spun around, and that's when I saw her. A woman in white, her face pale and her dress torn, standing under the weak light of a lamppost. She didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at me with eyes that looked hollow, lifeless. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs felt like they were nailed to the ground. I blinked once, and she was gone. The space beneath the lamp was empty again, as if she had never been there. I forced myself to move, my breaths coming out sharp and shallow. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting her to appear again. The air around me felt icy, and no matter how fast I walked, the weight of her presence followed me until I reached the end of the lane. When I finally stepped onto the main road, the sounds of traffic and life returned, but I was still trembling. I had never felt fear like that before. Not the kind that makes you scream, but the kind that seeps into your bones and stays with you. To this day, whenever I pass near Platt Lane, I take a different route. Because I know what I saw, and I know she's still there, waiting in the silence for someone else to walk that road alone. 5A229 Bluebell Hill Road, Maidstone, Kent. I never thought I would be the kind of person to believe in ghost stories. But one rainy night on the A229, Bluebell Hill Road, everything I thought I knew about the world changed. I was driving back to Maidstone after visiting a friend. The rain was heavy, the wipers barely keeping up, and the road was quiet, too quiet for that hour. As I approached a bend, my headlights caught sight of a woman standing at the side of the road. She was wearing what looked like a white dress, clinging to her in the rain. Her hand was raised slightly, like she was asking for a lift. My first thought was that she'd been in some kind of accident. Without thinking, I pulled over. She didn't come closer, so I leaned across and opened the passenger door. She slid in slowly, dripping wet, her head bowed. The smell of damp filled the car instantly. I tried to speak to her, asked if she was all right, if she needed to get to the hospital. She didn't answer. She just sat there, hands clasped tightly in her lap. The air in the car grew cold, so cold I could see my breath. My stomach twisted, but I forced myself to keep driving. A few minutes passed, and then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed her looking at me. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow, and there was something deeply wrong about her expression. My chest tightened, and I felt a chill run all the way down my spine. I gripped the wheel harder, trying to focus on the road. And then, without warning, she was gone. The seat beside me was empty. No sound of a door opening, no trace of water where she had been sitting, just silence. Panic flooded me. I swerved slightly, pulling the car to the side of the road. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I got out, the rain soaking me instantly, and searched the road around me with trembling hands. There was nothing. No woman, no footprints, no sign that anyone had been there at all. I stood in the rain for what felt like hours, unable to understand what had just happened. Finally, I forced myself back into the car and drove the rest of the way with my hands shaking on the wheel. That night still haunts me. Every time I hear someone mention Bluebell Hill, I remember the cold in that car, the silence, and those empty eyes staring into me. I don't care what anyone says, I know what I saw. And I will never drive that road at night again.